Hello, friends and well-wishers, and welcome back to another episode of A Quarter Ton of Fun. It's your buddy Ryan, aka The Champ. You know it. But this week we're going to talk about how a very fat person fits into a non-fat world. So we've sort of talked in general about some of my difficulties of dealing with this big of a body, this heavy of a body, in the real world. There are certain things you can't do. There are certain things when you try to do them, they just don't work out the way they would for an average person or even someone who's just got a little bit of junk in the trunk instead of a whole junkyard. But today I want to get a little more specific, and I decided to count down the top 5 things that this fat body just can't do. Number 5. So first up, we have go to a sporting event. I like sports. I always have. I love professional wrestling. Always have since I was a little kid. And I really can't go to any of those events because I won't fit in your standard stadium or arena seat. And yes, I know sometimes you can get like different club level seats, or if you're rich, you could get a box. I'm not rich and I don't want to spend that much money. So for me, it's the cheap seats or nothing. And it's been nothing for a long time. I went to a Detroit Tigers game with my wife and my in-laws, I want to say sometime around 2011, and I barely fit into the seat then. And obviously being a tall guy too, I'm about 6'1", 6'2", so that makes it difficult too because leg room is always an issue, but you know, my butt is much wider. I don't know how wide the average stadium seat is, but it's a lot smaller than my butt. So I'm crammed into the little plastic seat that's pre-molded for, you know, even regular sized people sometimes have trouble with those. They think they're too tight or they're not big enough. So you can imagine bringing all this thunder down upon it didn't work out. And this bums me out because one of the rites of passage of having a son is taking him to his first ball game, letting him enjoy that. And I didn't get to take my son to his first ball game. He went with my wife and my in-laws. I didn't get to go because I'm too big to comfortably go and take him. And that bums me out a lot because it's something my dad did for me, taking me to my first baseball game. It's something I wanted to be there with my son for, and I couldn't. And that sucks. And I'm hoping as I lose this weight, I get to a point where I can take him to a few ball games. Because even if he's not a big baseball fan, there's just something fun about going to the ball game with your dad and having some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. And I don't know if we'll ever go back. Number 4. The doctor's office. And this one is sort of a two-pronged thing. First, in general, any waiting room I'm going to in any business I don't know, a doctor's office, you know, meeting when we were closing out our house, things like that, I never know if they're going to have a seat that can accommodate me. Sometimes you go in and it's all chairs with arms that are too small that I'm not going to fit in, and I either have to try to squeeze into it and risk it sticking to my ass, or stand there awkwardly like a creep and draw a lot of attention to yourself. That always sucks. Sometimes you get lucky, and more waiting rooms I have found do have some chairs without arms and things that are for bigger people. I think as Americans have gotten fatter, some businesses have tried harder to accommodate that. The other part of it is once you go back to see the doctor, you don't know what the doctor's table that you're supposed to get on is going to be like. Now, my current doctor, they're like heavy duty, they're metal. I'm very comfortable getting on them. And oftentimes I'll just sit on a chair anyway because they're just, where I'm very tall, the doctor I see is actually a fairly short woman, and it's easier for her sometimes to look at my ears or my mouth or whatever, or check my pulse and stuff if we're more on an equal level. If I'm sitting up there, she's got to climb, you know, on a stool to get to me or whatever. One embarrassing story with that is several years back, I was up for a job, and this job required a physical. Always a scary thing when you're my size because you don't know if you're going to pass it. And so I went in, and the first thing, the nurse came in, they checked my blood pressure, and it was high. This was before I was on blood pressure medicine, before I was really taking any sort of care of myself, my physical health, and my blood pressure was really high. So I was not going to pass this physical. So she's like, well, we're going to have you drink some water. We want you to sit up here on this table and relax. So I look over at this table, and this table is wood and rickety, and I'm just seeing this thing breaking down into its base elements as soon as my big butt gets near it. It's just going to collapse into, some carbon and phosphorus or whatever wood is made of. And I'm very leery of this, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep myself calm and not get all worked up. So I get up on this table and lay down, and it holds. Some creaking, some cracking, but it holds. I'm thinking, all right, I'm home free. So a little while later, the doctor comes in to see me. He says, okay, you can get up. I go to get up, and in doing so, my weight, of course, shifts to the edge of the table, and that was too much for it. I hear a loud crack, and I stand up to find that the base of the table, the arm that kind of holds the doctor's table together on the underneath part, has cracked completely in half, just demolished. The doctor's looking at me with sort of a mixture of disgust and amusement. I immediately start just saying, I am so sorry. I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. He was cool about it. He was nice about it. They didn't make me pay for the table or anything. But needless to say, my blood pressure shot through the roof, and I honestly can't remember if I passed that physical or not, but if I did, I think my blood pressure was probably lied about by that doctor, because I'm sure it was enormously out of the normal range. Number 3. Seatbelts. Very important piece of safety equipment. A very important piece of safety equipment when you're driving in a car, right? And this one is actually a little bit out of date, because I am proud to say that right now in my wife's car, I've been able to do the driver's side belt without an extender or anything for a long time. Just recently, I was able to do the passenger side belt with no extender. It's a little bit shorter, I guess, or it's just the way I sit in the car differently on that side. I don't know. But I needed an extender, and now I don't, which is cool, which is very good. But for the longest time, I could not wear a seatbelt while driving and without an extender. And that's, of course, embarrassing. And, you get into a friend's car to go somewhere, and you can't put the seatbelt on. And that's dangerous. You're driving down the highway or whatever, not wearing a seatbelt. I would never recommend that to anyone, of course. I would say that's stupid. I did it many times. I drove many times without a seatbelt because I had not gotten an extender yet, and I was embarrassed about it, so I just tried to ignore the problem. Which is why I'm in the condition that I am, because I ignore the problem, I kick the can down the road, and this is eventually where it led me. But I'm getting better on that. I don't need the extender right now, and so we might be able to soon cross seatbelts in general off the list. Number 2. Toilets. And boy, we went hardcore into talking about butt wiping in an episode that, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's a good one. Toilets are always difficult because sometimes they're put into a room that is just really, really small. Some bathrooms aren't very big. And so public toilets, generally, there's a handicap stall you could use. That's not too bad. We'll get into another issue I have with public toilets in a minute. But as far as you go to someone's house, if number 2 comes calling, you might have to sit on the toilet. Now, going number 1 is not such a big deal for a guy. But a number 2, you got to sit down to try to go. And I remember particularly small toilet that I had to deal with was my great Aunt Betty. Wonderful lady. She recently passed. But she was like a second mom to my mom after my mom's mom had passed. I said mom a lot there. And just a wonderful, sweet lady. And we would go and visit her a lot. And there was always talk that her house was haunted. She talked about having seen ghosts there and stuff. And I'm a skeptic. I'm not really a believer in ghosts. I don't really think they exist. But If there was ever a house that was haunted, I do think it was hers. There was something creepy about her house, and I could never quite put my finger on it. And especially the small little hallway that led to the small little bathroom was always a creepy area to go into. My aunt also collected dolls, and so she always had these dolls around her house that were creepy and looking at you. And I just always expected one of them to be sitting there and turn its head, and I'd freak out, and then I wouldn't need the bathroom because I would have crapped my pants. But her bathroom was very, very tiny, and her toilet was wedged next to the sink in between the shower, wall. And it was just this tiny little area to try to wedge your butt in. And for the life of me, the last time I visited her, which was quite a while ago, I hadn't been up there in a long time, to her house, I had to poop. And I had to wedge myself in there so tightly that I almost didn't think I was going to be able to get out. I was thinking about yelling for my mom and dad and saying, hey, get some butter, get some olive oil, get some WD-40, something. We're going to have to grease me up and pop me out of here. I eventually did get out of there, and thank God I never had to poop on that toilet again. Now, at my most recent workplace, they have the public toilets there are not the kind that sit on a base that comes up out of the floor. The base juts out of the wall and has no support underneath. That's terrifying for a person my size, because one of the most embarrassing things that I think could possibly happen to you, and thank God it hasn't happened to me yet, is you sit your big butt down on one of these toilets, you poop, and then it breaks off the wall, and you're laying there swimming in toilet water and your own feces and your shame. And that, every time I would sit on one of these toilets at work, is what I would think about is, please don't break, please don't break. And I would sort of do that hover squat thing where, I couldn't completely hover because I'm not strong enough to hold myself up like that. It's too much thunder. But I would do the, trying to put as much weight on my legs as possible to support myself. And not the most comfortable way to poop. People who make people who make public toilets don't make those kind of toilets. I don't care if it saves money. I don't care if it's better for normal people. I don't care about any of it. Don't make those kind of toilets. Number one is from the title of this, real pants. I was too fat for real pants. And what are real pants, you say? Jeans, khakis, dress slacks, the kind of pants that you would wear out and about in public generally. Around the time that my dad died, I was gaining weight rapidly. After my dad died, I put it on real quick. I was eating very bad stuff very often. And I soon found that my size 70 pants, yeah, that's right. And they might even be bigger than that. They might be a 72 or so. I don't remember. They're gigantic, right? Huge around. No longer would fit. You'll realize I'm much smaller under my belly. I carry most of my weight in my gut. My gut area is huge. I'm not one of these fat guys that's going to wear pants under his belly and then try to wear a super long shirt and tuck in it. No, I'm not doing it. I have to wear my pants up near my belly button or over. I will not put pants on like that and then have my gut hanging out in public. No. What I had to do was embarrassing enough, which was switch to athletic pants or jogging pants for everywhere I would go. And so I went back to work around that time for a little while until I hurt my back. And I wore jogging pants or athletic pants to work every day, which is embarrassing. And nothing was said about it, but I'm sure it was noticed. Because I was just too fat for the pants that I had. And the pants that I got were like the biggest pants you could possibly order. It's really, really bad. It's a really bad sign when you go into the big and tall shop and they don't have pants in the store for you. You have to special order them. And then it's an even worse sign when you get too fat for those pants and they can't even special order them for you. They can't take 2 tarps and sew them together big enough because there are not enough small children in faraway countries working in sweatshops to get the job done. That's how fat I was. And kind of am, but I am proud to say I can now wear my pants again, but I was too fat for real pants. And that led to the most embarrassing and soul-crushing story of the day. And I know what you're saying. Worse than worrying every time you poop that you're going to break a toilet off the wall. Worse than going to a doctor's office and destroying his table. Yes, children, yes. Because during this time period, my grandmother died. My grandma Cora passed away. And of course, there was a funeral. None of my pants fit, other than jogging pants or athletic pants. So I wore jogging pants to my grandmother's funeral. And let me tell you, I was embarrassed. And again, nobody came up to me at my grandmother's funeral. And I'm sorry, guys, it is warm in here and I am sweating like I don't know, something sweaty. A big fat guy doing a YouTube video. I wore jogging pants to my grandmother's funeral, and I was mortified with myself. Now, that wasn't enough to get me to change and to do anything about it, but I was so embarrassed. And, you know, it's just one of those things where in the big picture, the big scope of things, I lost my grandmother. I'm sad about that. Everyone is, you know, you're not there to focus on someone's pants, but all I can think about is everyone's looking at the big fat blob who can't wear... He's too fat for real pants, and so he has to wear jogging pants to his own grandmother's funeral and look like a hobo. No offense to hobos. I respect what you guys do, riding the rails, eating beans, bindles. It's all cool. Well, now that you know 5 things I'm too fat for, let's talk about how this week's weekly weigh-in went. So last week I was at 505. This week I weighed in at 505. That's right, a complete plateau, no difference. Disappointing. I'm glad that the number didn't go up, but I am disappointed, and I'm making a vow to you guys right now. Next week, that number's going down. I went for a walk this morning. I exercised today. I'm eating good. I'm eating healthy all week. Those numbers are going to start going down again. I am inspired, and I am feeling better and more like myself because I am going to be a beast and I'm going to get these muscles, these traps popping, and we're going to see that number come down, baby, and I will be the number 1 contender for the skinniest. Never start a wrestling promo when you don't know what you're going to say, baby. Oh God, why did any of you watch this? I mean, seriously, that's what I want to know in the comments this week. Why do you watch this? What are you getting out of this? I'm an idiot. As always, I would love if you would subscribe to the channel. Click the little red subscribe button down below. There's a white bell next to it. Click that too, and it's going to give you a notification every week when I post a new video. It's going to be every Tuesday. You can interact with me on Instagram at a quarter ton of fun. Next week, sex. Now that I've got your attention, next week, sex. That's actually what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about coitus, the beast with 2 backs. Getting it on, babies. And it's going to be my most controversial topic since I described in detail how I used to wipe my butt. So make sure you don't miss that if you've ever been curious about how someone this fat gets all up in that business. And that one's going to be just for the adults, okay? That's going to be a TV-14 rating. So we focused a lot today on the things that I can't do or that I couldn't do. Things that I was too fat for. But as my weight has come down, that list is growing smaller and smaller and smaller. And one of my goals is to make sure that that list, which will most likely always exist for me in some form because I don't think I'm going to get real skinny at any point. If I get below 300 pounds, it'll be awesome. But even at 300 pounds, there will be things you're too fat for, too fat to do. I'm okay with that list being small. I'm okay with there being some things. But I don't like the fact that there are so many, including ones that I really want to do, like taking my boy to a ball game, or wearing a seatbelt in a friend's car without having to worry if it's going to fit or not, or just going to the doctor and knowing I can sit down in a seat. Those are basic, everyday kind of things that you should be able to do. And I want to make sure that I can. And I know that I'm going to get there. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in and for continuing to support me through what has been kind of a difficult patch here. The weight's not coming off so fast. I've struggled a bit. I've had some setbacks. I didn't get to return to work like I was hoping for. And I've been down in the dumps and I haven't been doing as well as I should have. And a lot of you have stuck with me and been supportive and helpful. And that's awesome. And it means a lot to me. I want to thank you guys. And I want you all to know that I think you are
damn sexy.
Meanwhile, at a local medical facility, Mr. and Mrs. Scale, it's a boy. Excellent. I shall name him Ryan's Bane.